Hello guys, so this is day 39 of the daily RC practice series. Here is a quick synopsis. So the first paragraph introduces Miles Davis as the subject. Author tells us about his productive career, and he pities the fact that his genius is not sufficiently recognized. Critics blame his impulsive innovations and lack of consistency for the same. In the second paragraph, author gives career highlights of this man. He began with bebop, and then uh, eventually from bebop he moved towards cool jazz style. In the third paragraph, author talks about the next transition in innovations, description of his next musical innovation. In the next paragraph, author talks about the next. In the second half of this paragraph, author also tells us uh, that this radical frequency of innovations also caused some unfavorable reactions from the jazz lovers and conventionalists. And finally, in the last paragraph, author gives his take, and he says critics probably feared the broadening of genre, and that is why he criticized him. His career was not like the usual jazz artists. The career spanned more. Its width spanned wider than usual. He did not have a tragic life, and so critics do not give him his due share of respect. So author is positive about this man, while critics are negative. They do not regard him as one of the highest achievers in the field of jazz music. With this basic understanding, we can look at the questions now. All right, question number one, main point of the passage. Option A, because the career of Miles Davis was characterized by frequent shifts in styles, he never fulfilled his musical potential. Now, this is alien, because this part is correct that his career was characterized by frequent shifts in styles, but author never says that he never fulfilled his musical potential. In fact, the overall tone of this answer choice is negative, while the author's tone towards Miles Davis is positive. Option B, because the career of Miles Davis does not fit neatly into their preconceptions about the life and music of jazz musicians. Okay, jazz critics have not accorded him the appreciation he deserves. So, a very tempting choice seems like the author's main point here. The only objection that I have with this answer choice is the word life. His career did not fit neatly into their preconceptions. Okay, preconceptions is another problematic word, but I think we can consider it. We can keep it for now, and let's see if we are able to find out a better answer choice. Option C, because the career of Miles Davis was unusually long. That's correct. He had an enduring career, and it was unusually productive. Yes, written here. His career endured. He was always reaching for something new. All right. He never received the popular acclaim generally reserved for artists with more tragic life histories. And this comes from this line. Author says, no, because he did not die young. He did not die young was also one of the reasons that jazz critics do not regard him highly. So option C is a better answer choice. So this word life, the life of jazz musicians, is slightly beyond the context of discussion, slightly beyond. Option D, the long and productive career of Miles Davis, okay, spawned most of the major stylistic changes affecting 20th century jazz. This word is again problematic. Most of the major stylistic changes came because of this guy, Miles Davis. Such a claim, such an assertion has never been made. This is a bit too extreme. All right. So option C is the correct answer. Question number 2. Which one of the following is true of the West Coast cool jazz style? Okay. It grew out of innovations developed in New York City. That is correct. Written here. So Davis became a member of an impromptu musical think tank that gathered in New York City, and from the same New York City apartment, they created something, which also became the seedbed for the West Coast cool jazz style. So it grew out of innovations developed in New York City. That's correct. It was characterized by a unified and integrated sound. That was the second shift. That was something else. It was not West Coast cool jazz style. It was the second style produced by Miles. It was played primarily by large ensembles. Nowhere written that it was played by large ensembles. It was played by ensembles, is all we know. And primarily is also a problematic word here. It was only played by ensembles or groups. Okay. It introduced a wide variety of chord change patterns. Again, this was the next style. It was not the West Coast cool jazz style. Okay. Option A, easy question. Question 3. The passage suggests which of the following about the kind of jazz played by Miles Davis prior to 1948. Okay. So here, he began his career studying bebop, uh, but in 1948, he became a member of an impromptu musical think tank that gathered in a New York City apartment. The work of this group not only slowed down the tempos, which means before 1948, the tempo was higher, faster, and it also featured ensemble, that is a group, okay, which means before 1948, before 1948, there were more solo performances than group performances. All right, which makes A the correct answer right away. It was characterized by rapid tempos, that's correct, and emphasis on solo playing, that is also correct. So if this is a shift in 1948, prior to 1948, the opposite must have been happening. Be it equally balanced ensemble and solo playing, nowhere written, alien idea. This word equally. It was a reaction against more restrictive jazz styles. Well, that was the second style. It was not in 1948 exactly, or prior to 1948. It was post 1948, and that too much later. It is regarded by purist jazz critics as the only authentic. We don't know that. An extreme modifier. We don't know that. So option A is the correct answer. Author's attitude towards Miles Davis's music. Okay. Appreciative advocacy. Does the author appreciate his music? Yes, because he says critics have not given him his due. All right. Does he advocate his music? Yes, he says, critics were scared of the broadening of the genre, and because his career was longer, all these are positive words, because he did not die young, because he refused to dwell in whatever niche he had previously carved out for himself. Critics find it difficult to do. So author is criticizing the critics and appreciating this guy. Correct answer A. Author is clearly not neutral. Well, respect author has for this guy, but grudging, where does that come from? Does not have envy. Moderate commendation. Well, I would say this is not moderate commendation. This is appreciative advocacy. Author does appreciate him. Okay. So it's a slightly lower word in terms of degree or intensity. A low intensity word. All right, option A is the correct answer. All right, question 5. Which in the following creative processes is most similar to Miles Davis's typical studio procedure of the late 1960s? A beautiful question, CR application based question. So what is the process given here? Let's see. By 1969, Davis's typical studio procedure was to have musicians improvise from a basic script of material and then to build finished pieces out of the tape, like a movie director. Okay, let's see. Option A. His role was that of a producer of a television comedy show, suggesting a setting and a general topic for a comedy sketch. That's correct. This is parallel to providing a base script for material. Okay, and then lets the comedians write their own script. That is also correct. Musicians improvise, so this is parallel to this. But guys, what about this part? Building something, building the finished pieces out of tape. There is no parallel to this part in option A. Therefore, option A is incomplete idea. We'll put it in doubt and we'll look for a better answer. Option B, an actor digresses from the written script and improvises during a monologue in order to introduce a feeling of spontaneity to the performance. Miles Davis was not just an actor, he was directing others also. So what about others? What about musicians? Option B only talks about one agent, one person, while the idea here involves many people, and Miles was the head, he was a leader of a kind and he was directing them. Option C, a conductor rehearses each section of the orchestra separately before assembling them to rehearse the entire piece together. There's no improvisation, there's no base script given, not at all parallel to what the idea suggests. Option D, an artist has several photographers take pictures. Okay, so artist has several photographers take pictures. Photographers become parallel to musicians pertaining to a certain assigned theme. That becomes base script material, and then this artist Miles Davis, parallel to Miles Davis, assembles them into a pictorial collage. Okay, build finished pieces out of the tape. Option D is the best parallel answer. A good question, guys. All right, so finally, last question, question 6. Which one of the following, if true, would most undermine the author's explanation for the way Miles Davis is regarded by jazz critics? Okay, so author thinks that jazz critics hate him or do not like him much because of these reasons. What were the reasons? Number one, that he was too impulsive and too impatient. All right, he made too many innovations. All right, radical innovations, radical improvisations. Also, his life or his career endured much more than usual, so he lasted more, his career lasted more. Finally, he did not have a tragic life. All right. Also, he did not he left what he produced. He did not dwell, it's written here, refused to dwell in whatever niche he had created, so he left what he produced and moved on to the next innovation. Okay, so these are the reasons why critics, dislike him or not did not appreciate him much. Option A. And we have to weaken the author's argument. Option A says many jazz musicians who specialize in improvisational playing are greatly admired by jazz critics. Okay, it's not about improvisation, it is about the degree or the frequency of improvisation. Author says critics hate him because he was too impulsive and he made too many improvisations. The degree was high, and not just that he made improvisations in the first place. So frequency of improvisation is important here. This would not weaken author's argument. Option B, many jazz musicians whose careers have been characterized by several radical changes in style are greatly admired by jazz critics. Okay, now guys, please understand. If there are other jazz critics whose careers are also marked by radical changes in style, but they are admired by jazz critics, then this cannot be the reason, no, that Davis was too impulsive, too impatient, and made radical improvisations cannot be a reason for critics' lack of respect for this guy. which means author's argument is weakened by B. Critical reasoning questions are interesting, guys. You'll have to think what the question demands. Okay. Option C. Several jazz musicians who perform exclusively on electronic instruments are very highly. So this is not author's argument, not related to author's argument at all. The jazz innovators who are held in the highest regard by jazz critics had brief yet brilliant career. ये तो author बोल ही रहा है. This is something that author is saying. So this would rather support the author's argument than weaken it. Option B is the correct answer. Hope you enjoyed and scored a full 18 marks. Keep watching for more. Happy learning.